Hello, my name is Akari Jensen. I'm the principal of the Northwest Outdoor Science School, here to talk to you today about cabin lists and class lists, which are really important information that we need in order to be prepared to receive your students at outdoor school. So starting with the cabin lists, these we have created so that you can tell us which groupings of students are going to be successful sleeping in the same cabin overnight. So they will do a lot of activities throughout the week together. We know that teachers know students best. And for this reason, we ask teachers to create a cabin list that's going to work for their particular group of students. Some things that have been successful in the past are when teachers ask students to share one or two other buddies that they would like to be in a cabin with, really paying attention to, whether those students can be successful together, but trying to make sure that they have at least one other person that they feel really comfortable in a cabin with. And then, maybe letting kids meet some new classmates, and that can be a really good thing for community building as well. So when you're creating cabin class lists, we ask that you input students' first and last names into the slots provided. So right here, you would put their first and last name. Please note that we have very carefully shown how many spots we have in each particular cabin. So we ask that you don't add lines or really change this in any way. You're just putting groups into cabins. And please do not add lines because we wouldn't have enough beds for that particular cabin. We do also make notes of things that are things you need to know about that particular site. So for Cedar Ridge, for example, there are kind of actually 3 cabin groups that are in the same building. So you'll see this says building 1, cabin 1 is in the same building as cabin 2 and 3, separated by walls and a door. So there is a way to kind of close it off, but you want to be aware that those cabin groups are really close to each other. So you'll be putting the names of the students in the first and last spot. We also ask that you fill cabins. So something to note, in a lot of cases, we have multiple schools that are coming at the same time. So rather than if you had 15 students that you're bringing, you wouldn't want to make 3 groups of 5, because that would then mean that we're taking up 3 cabins. Instead, we'd want to try and make those groups as even as possible. So if you had 15, you might have one group of 8 and one group of 7, but that way we're only taking up 2 cabins with your students. We do try to keep schools together by cabin. So next to each cabin name, you have some other information that might be important while you're making some notes. So for example, I just went over to a Meriwether set of cabins. You'll see that there's some notes about most ADA friendly, closest to the nurse. There at Meriwether, there happen to be bathrooms in all of the cabins. At Magruder, for example, that is not the case. There are some cabins that have bathrooms in the cabins and some that do. So nearest to the restroom, most ADA friendly, you'll see this one's not ADA friendly. Those notes will let you know kind of where you need to place people. So please do be mindful of which buildings you are placing people in. Something that's really important to note that we have really spent a long time working through our LGBTQ plus inclusion policy, and that is new for this year. It is available on our website in the frequently asked questions section. We have 3 cabin areas that students can be assigned to. One is female plus. Those are cabins for female students, regardless of their sex assigned at birth, non-binary campers who feel more safe in a female identifying cabin, or trans students who feel safer in that space. Male plus cabins are for male students, regardless of their sex assigned at birth, non-binary campers who feel safe in a male identifying space, as well as trans students who feel safer in that space. We also have gender inclusive cabins. Now, those gender inclusive cabins You might think of them as all gender or agender. It's for anybody who feels more comfortable in a space that's not defined by gender. That could be allies of trans students. It could be non-binary students who really don't want to have a gender assigned to the cabin that they're staying in. In those gender inclusive cabins, what we've seen historically is those tend to be smaller. There's less students that are opting into those at the moment. However, it does happen. And so we do ask that you make sure that you're checking in with your students about which of these makes the most sense for them. You are welcome to also collaborate with us on how to make sure that there's at least 2 students in every cabin group. That is something that we do need to make sure of, because one person in a cabin on their own really isn't a cabin experience at outdoor school. We also would like you to share with us some notes that would help us prepare for your student's arrival. So anything that would be helpful, like this student's really shy, this student is very energetic, this student does not get along with this person, so that's why they're not in cabins. Please don't rearrange them in any way. Those are all instructions that are really, really helpful for us to have. We do ask that you submit this form at least 2 weeks prior to your visit to outdoor school. That way, if there's any shifts that need to happen, one shift that does happen sometimes is we might have 2 schools attending at the same time, and they both have a student with medical needs that needs to be closer to the nurse. In that case, we may be reaching out to schools and saying, we need to combine your 2 schools into one cabin so that they can both be close to the nurse or have a bathroom in their cabin or whatever that may be. But those are things that if we have enough time, we can troubleshoot with you before your students arrive at outdoor school. So that concludes our discussion about cabin lists. Moving on to class lists. These look a little different than years past. So if you've been coming to outdoor school for a while, there are some different things. The first is that we ask that we have a list of all of the school staff that are going to be attending with your students. So the teachers, instructional assistants, paras, anybody that's attending, please list them here on this sheet. If they have any dietary needs, you'll select yes, and then you would tell us what that dietary need is. That just helps us prepare the kitchen to be sure that we can accommodate you. The next part of this is the students that are not attending. This is really helpful for us because it's going to help us track the non-attendance rate of your classes, and it's just something that we look for. If we see the student on the not attending list and then we also see them on the class list, we know to kind of ask if there's if the student is undecided or something like that. So this gives you the chance to list the students that are not attending, their student ID number, and the reason for not attending outdoor school, or their caregiver information. Then the class list. Now, the class list is going to look a little different. Instead of listing all of your students just in a list, that will happen automatically for you. We're instead asking that you group students into field study groups. We are going to be shifting our curriculum models to where students will go to field study and they'll stay in that field study group for the entire time they're at outdoor school. So we really want to be thoughtful about those groups and making sure that students are going to be successful. So what we've asked is that, and we don't need to have, we hope that these are a little bit different than the cabin groups. This can be, does not matter what the gender of the person is, and really getting a chance for students to work with people that maybe they wouldn't typically work with. But there are 4 different groups: Group A, Group B, Group C, and Group D. So you, based on the number of students that you have, you can distribute equally into 4 different groups. Unless you have a very small group that's coming, like 20 students, we'd probably just want you to make two groups out of that. But if it's around 7 or 8 students per group, that's fine as well. So you're going to list students' first and last names. We ask that you put the phonetic spelling to help us pronounce your students' names correctly. Any notes that you have about that student, you can put right here, things specifically that would be helpful for their field instructor to know, maybe things about the way that they learn, or that they wouldn't be successful with a certain person or a certain type of student leader. Those notes are always really, really helpful to have. So once you've input all of your students by group into these 4 different field study groups, this will auto-populate for you. So your class, it will pull the list of names of students from group A, group B, group C, group D, and also for the not attending. And so then what will happen over here, you'll have a nice kind of total where you can see the total number of students per class, as well as the total number of students attending, not attending, and that should kind of help you keep track of whether you have everyone accounted for somewhere on this spreadsheet. But again, this list is locked, and that's because you don't need to touch it at all. It should auto-populate from the things that you are typing on these 2 tabs here. So that concludes our video lesson on how to do the cabin lists and class lists for Northwest Outdoor Science School.